Can we?
Okay. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and call this regularly scheduled Historic Architectural Review Board of Monday, April 7th to order. I apologize. We are 6 minutes late. We had a technical difficulty, but we're back on track now. We're going to make sure everybody gets to that national championship game tonight. Go Gators. We didn't let anybody who's a Seminole fan come tonight. With that, I would have asked for...
Oh, no.
Exactly. He specifically wasn't invited, but just shows up, right? I'll have approval of the agenda for the HARB agenda. I have a motion by Board Member Urchin.
Second.
Second by Board Member Parker. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the board? Comments, questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously with, we are down. Board Member Long has resigned. I should have said that from the beginning. And Board Member Polo will probably be here fairly soon, but she is running late. Okay, that's going to move us to the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please all rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We do not have a consent agenda on the HARB. We do not have any public hearings or ordinance. That's going to move us to our one agenda item for the HARB, which is the proclamation for Historic Preservation Month. John Paul, take it away.
Thank you,
Do I
Mr.
have a
Mayor.
proclamation in this? Or are you going to read the proclamation?
I don't have a copy of the proclamation, so I don't have it to read. The proclamation.
Oh, great.
The proclamation is just for a recommendation to the commission, and then you sitting as mayor of the commission will read the proclamation.
That's true. Everybody read it in their backup material. It's fine.
You want me to
Yeah.
read it? Or?
No, it's okay. It's okay. We've read it. We're recommending. I'll read it there.
All right, and at the request of the commission, we're bringing the Historic Preservation Month proclamation a little bit earlier so it can be read in advance of the commencement of the month of May. So we're on time with our proclamations. Our recommendation for the Historical Architectural Review Board is to recommend that the City Commission proclaim the month of May as Historic Preservation Month in the city of Newberry. Just want to go through some overview real quick. So why do we celebrate Historic Preservation Month? We celebrate the irreplaceable historic resources that contribute to the character and identity of the city of Newberry. Historic preservation is a strong pull for tourism for many cities, looking to get a glimpse into the past as to how cities used to conduct business, how they evolved over time, how they've been affected by the events of world history, and how a community has gravitated towards one type of commerce or one type of way of living over another. And each city is unique in that respect, and a lot of their commerce informs what they are. This particular year's theme is banks, and banks are the primary source of resources for economic growth. They provide the loans, the debt service that budding businesses need to get a start. So with that, economic growth, something that's always on the mind of City of Newberry, and celebrating our financial resources for our residents, our farmers, and our merchants here in the City of Newberry. To that point, just pointing out the original Bank of Newberry, which was constructed in 1908, has a brick Romanesque revival style to it, and it's amongst the earliest commercial buildings in the city of Newberry, 1906 being the earliest, which is the antique shop. This is a picture from 1912 of the bank. This is where it was generally located in 1938, so you can see kind of the lay of the land in 1938. Yeah, a lot of farms. This is in 1989. You can see a bit of a difference between this structure. At the very top of the structure, you see some of that railing is now missing in 1989. And there's an awning over the entrance, which is something that was added. And then this is it last week, actually. So you can say it's stayed largely in the same shape and form, hasn't changed very much, and just needs a little polish. Yep, absolutely. And this was the original bank manager, Henry Arline Pickett. So I don't know if he's related to Pickett Weaponry, but this is a photo of him from 1895. And the Pickett family was primarily in the Virginia area. This Henry Arline Pickett is from Georgia. Ended up moving to Alachua County as a young merchant. He comes from a mercantile family. And purportedly, he sold the first cotton fertilizer in Alachua County. So first shipment for cotton fertilizer in Alachua County. And so our recommendation is to have the City Commission proclaim May as Historic Preservation Month 2025.
All right, so we just need a motion recommending approval.
Yes, sir.
So moved.
I have a motion from Board Member Urchin, second from Board Member Parker. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Great little history lesson. Any comments, questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. That moves us to topic for members' discussion. Board Member Parker, do you have any topics?
I'll cover this topic since
Yeah.
we're in the heart. So the Newberry Historical Association is putting on a raffle for a basket. So we are selling raffle tickets. We'll be doing a drawing on April 19th. $5 for one ticket or 5 tickets for $20. It's lots of stuff in there. We've got RPM, Mitchell's Meats gift certificates, Eliano's drinks, Stonehouse. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in there. So,
What's the overall total value?
looking at around $200.
I think it's a little, there's a,
It might be $250 now.
there's
I
a
mean,
gift
we've got-
certificate
oh, yeah.
to Blood, Sweat, and
That's
Tears
right,
for
we got
$50,
Blood, Sweat, and
so.
Tears now, they contributed over the weekend, and a
Yes.
t-shirt in there.
So if
that's
you
been
need a new
added, so-
tattoo and you need a discount, there's a $50. For $5, you could get over $250 of local provisions.
Yep,
don't have any
it's all
tattoos.
local companies.
Huh, very interesting, very interesting. Looks like a
So,
touch-up job.
There is a way to sign up online. The Newberry Historical Association Facebook page now has a link to the Google form, and we have a Cash App available now. But you can also talk to me or any of the other members, and we'll do cash and raffle tickets for you.
Absolutely. Well, sounds great. And let any of us know, we'll make sure we get you a ticket. Miss Kathy, you got anything?
I do. I know we want to leave for the game, but I do too.
We have a whole other meeting after this.
I
so-
know, but I want to be quick, 'cause you know, it can take a long time. All my growing up, I've often heard time after time after time that the Bank of Newberry was one of the only banks that stayed open, completely open during the Depression. And they dealt with agriculture, farming, kept the farmers going. And I actually, this past year, have tried to research that to get some proof, and I can't find it. So that would be interesting to know, because all the older people in my family have said that it was one of the only banks that stayed open to keep the farms going.
I'll share some of the resources that I found online with
Okay.
you. Yeah, there's some early writings, some historians that wrote stuff down, and it was around that same period, so,
Okay, that would
Yeah.
be really neat, because
Yeah.
I've looked and
yeah, I'll
I
share.
have
Can I
nothing.
request that too?
Yeah, absolutely.
We can also ask Commissioner Farnsworth. He was probably serving in that.
I think Monty was there when that happened, actually. You can tell him I said, he's probably watching us.
Monty's the reason we had a Great Depression.
The other thing I have is the Watermelon Festival will be having their auction on April 25th. We have a very famous celebrity auctioneer coming. It's going to be great. All the commissioners, board members, city staff, everyone's invited.
Awesome.
Rustic Oaks Ranch at 7 p.m., April 25th.
And the board members, P&Z board members, HAR members, they're invited
Yep.
as well.
And city
Great food.
Staff,
Wonderful.
families, whoever. Yep.
All
Come
right.
see our celebrity auctioneer.
Exciting. so excited.
It's you.
Oh,
Looking at you going, that's you, right? Is she? Is he gonna get this?
I thought you found somebody to replace me. I was like,
That joke didn't hit. Jeez.
Board Member Urchin, you got any topics for discussion?
No, just remember tomorrow is voting day, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Municipal building. That's, everybody is voting at that one location. We got some great potential candidates coming on. And, yeah, just, I don't want to hear the garbage on Facebook and then you did not vote. Making that very clear. Okay? Please. Yeah. If you're gonna talk garbage on Facebook, I really hope you exercise your right to vote, because that's where it really matters.
Agreed. Okay, I have nothing, so, we are adjourned. Don't go anywhere. We are in our Planning and Zoning Board member. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Planning and Zoning Board meeting, regularly scheduled Monday, April 7th. We're gonna go ahead and start with the call to order. I do have some, changes. Ms. Stacy, take me through those changes to the published agenda so that I get this right. I'm not sure if the one I have in front of me is the one that reflects. I think it is.
Sure. We just want to move item number 4 to the top, to just above number 2 there.
Okay. So we've removed something, and this is, we have removed an item from tonight's agenda?
No, it's, I'm moving it to above number 2, just to speak in the record from the applicant.
Okay, from the applicant.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yes.
so we're gonna move 422 so that we can read a letter in. Great. Everybody follow that? Wonderful. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with that amendment?
So moved.
I have a motion from Board Member Parker. Second from Board Member Thomas. Any comments, questions, motions on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions, motions on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Do I have a motion to approve the consent
So moved.
agenda? Motion by Board Member Urchin. Second from Board Member Thomas. Any comments, questions from the dais? Comments, questions from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Stacy, take us through new item 2.
Yes. So the item that was number 4 that is now 2 was the SUP, the special use permit for the industrial park, the Northfleet Industrial Park. The applicant has asked that they be continued to a date and time certain. I'm going to read their request into the record. The Northfleet family wishes to deter to a time certain to the May Planning and Zoning Board, that would be May 5th at 6 p.m., the pending special use permit application to the May PZB to provide time to address misconceptions and misinformation regarding the proposed project. In conversations with staff, citizens in the community, and social media, several facts need to be reinforced regarding the project. The proposed concrete batch plant is not a cement plant where cement is manufactured from raw materials. The batch plant involves the mixing of sand, gravel, dry cement, and water into trucks for delivery to sites. A batch plant does not involve any blasting, mining, nor material extraction whatsoever. The proposed truss plant is within a specific site-specific building designed to contain dust and noise. The truss plant involves cutting of milled prepared lumber for the creation of structural building materials. Both facilities are strategically located on a rail line, reducing reliance on trucks and highways for aggregate and wood materials. And both facilities are directly connected to the NC Ranch property, allowing internal delivery and reducing reliance on roadways. Most importantly, the proposed facilities must meet all local, state, and national requirements for operations and safety. Copies of all required permits will be filed with the City of Newberry and appropriate agencies. Should you or the staff have any questions, we can contact the applicant. This was signed by Jerry Diedenbach of NV5. Wanted to make sure that was on the record. They've asked the continue to a date and time certain of May 5th at 6 p.m.
I think it's always good to do some information campaigns, let people know what exactly is happening and what is not actually happening. So I appreciate the Northview family for giving everybody the opportunity to get a little education before they come before us. So any comments on that from the board? Okay, let's have a motion to approve the time certain.
So moved.
I have a motion from Board Member Urchin,
Second.
second from Board Member Parker. Comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That moves us to legislative public hearing, first reading, transmittal hearing for wastewater, solid waste, stormwater, and potable water, and capital improvements elements of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan. Ms. Stacy, you doing that one too?
Yeah, I am.
All right.
Yes. So we are requesting, let me make sure this is on and working tonight. Yay, okay. So we are asking for the motion to approve the transmittal of CPA 2502, Ordinance 2025-04 on first reading. If approved on first reading, the petition will be transmitted to the state for expedited review. Not to bore you, because we all have been here for months, but as you know, we just transmitted the rest of the comprehensive plan, and staff had asked to hold out two of the elements because of the wastewater treatment facility. We wanted to make sure we had the time to make sure all the language was appropriately in there for both of these elements moving forward. We've done that. It just needed to be held back a little bit. We just approved it. We're going forward with these now. So in April 7, 2025, PZB, the first reading recommendation to transmit the elements to the state for the expedited review. That's us tonight. We're going to present the information, and you're going to give a recommendation to the City Commission. April 14th, we're hoping the City Commission will be, that will be the first reading for the City Commission, and the transmittal of the elements will present that information, and hopefully they will approve the recommendation to transmit to the state. Roughly June or July, we'll hear back from the state for the 45-day expedited review that they give us, and we will hopefully have no comments, and we will be able to adopt the elements shortly thereafter, these two last elements. This is the wastewater, solid waste, stormwater, oh gosh, they're all here. Solid waste, potable water, and the capital improvements. I was going to try to do it on memory. Yeah, no, not fast. Oops. So, as you all are very well aware, this process started in the spring of 2023. And in October of 24, we had our joint PZB City Commission meeting, and we have now gone down the pike to today. We've gone into November, December, we submitted, we got all our comments back, and as you know, at the last City Commission meeting, we did our second reading and adoption. And that's where the packet is, the entire packet. They're good, they have nothing else from us, and we received their comment we've received your packet, so you're good. So we're good on that one. Now, this is the other two. So this is the wastewater, solid waste, stormwater, and potable water. This element has one goal: to ensure the provision of public facilities in a timely, orderly, efficient, and environmentally sound manner at an acceptable level of service for the city's population. To augment that goal, there are 6 objectives with associated policies. We took out old references to portions of the comprehensive plan sub-elements that no longer exist, and we removed some old language that the state statutes have changed, and we got that language out of there. This element contains our adopted level of services on wastewater, solid waste, stormwater, and potable water. It ties perfectly into the capital improvements element, which is the one goal that element has is the city shall adopt and implement a capital improvements program which coordinates the timing and prioritizes the delivery of the needs addressed within the other elements of this comprehensive plan. Again, there are 5 objectives for that and associated policies. We remove the old references for those sub-elements that no longer exist. So the city's ongoing 5-year capital plan for capital improvements is updated annually during budget season. It's now referenced instead of inserted. Back in the day, people used to actually put the whole CIP in the comp plan. And it caused a lot of issues because 1, the document became too big, and 2, there was a lot of non-related things in there that did not need to be transmitted. So the capital improvements must be adopted every year, and so you will see this capital improvements element again in October. It is not one of our chances to, one of our stabs at the goal. It's not considered a large-scale amendment by any means. It's an annual update that you'll see after we do our October budget adoption, September September, going into October. So you'll see this again, updating it as necessary with the new plan. So our next steps, upon approval of the transmittal, staff will have 10 days to get the element up to the state for expedited review from the city commission, if the city commission approves it. And we'll get our comments back hopefully within approximate 45 days. And we'll be seeing we'll be seeing the city commission again in June or July for that adoption hearing. And we're asking again for the motion to approve the transmittal of CPA 2502, ordinance 2025-04 on the first reading to recommend to the city commission for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Board Member Urquhart, second from Board Member Parker. Are there any questions on the presentation?
Well done.
No? Okay, any questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, question on the motion on the floor. Very exciting. I did not find that boring at all. I think this is very exciting moment for us, right? If there are no questions from the public, come back to the board. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Wastewater, stormwater, solid waste, all of these things, they're what makes the city go, right? Okay, so,
It what makes the city flow.
oh, that was well done. That was
It's a
well
dad
done.
joke.
Yes.
That was a straight up
right.
dad joke.
I like it. I like it. Where are you going? We got, you're back on deck,
Yep,
right?
yep. I just had to get my papers.
All right, large scale retail big box ordinance. Here we go.
Here we go.
We are
Hold
waiting.
the crowds.
So, go ahead, Mr.
Yeah.
Attorney, would you please read, ordinance 2025-05/LDR 2501 into the record for us?
Yes, sir, this is ordinance. Amending Appendix B. Testifying here. Should recommend Newberry for passage of ordinance.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Stacy, take it away.
That's correct. So you just, the attorney read our recommended, our hope motion for recommendation to the city commission. That's what we're hoping for this evening. This is going to be a tag team presentation from myself and John Paul, who did the bulk of this work, the leg lifting of it for sure. As far, when we get deeper into the presentation, you'll see what I'm talking about. So as always, we're be tying all of our work and everything we do back to our strategic plan. And that we did here with our goal D1, future focused roadmap for community planning. We did that by aligning land development regulations with the revised comprehensive plan, which we just adopted the comprehensive plan. This is the next, sorry. This is the next piece, and then we're gonna enhance the development design standards along the primary corridors. So we've heard many different things throughout going through the start of this process to all the way being here tonight, and some people love them, some people hate them, some people want them, some people don't want them. And so our thought was, since we can't prohibit these types of large-scale retail or big box retailers, we're going to at least do something regarding their design and the way they develop. One of the things that we have, so here's our overview. We're going to go through each of these steps throughout this presentation. So the main piece that a lot of people have issue with is, what is the definition of a large-scale retail establishment? So we have attempted here to define that for you. Establishment, a large-scale retail establishment shall mean a single building that occupies 80,000 square feet of gross floor area or greater and serves a regional market. Large-scale retailers include, but are not limited to, membership wholesale clubs that emphasize bulk sales, a discount, home improvement, sports equipment, furniture, farm and department stores. Retail uses that do not meet these criteria are classified as retail sales, unless otherwise noted in the code. The square footage, trip generation rate, and use of the purposes of this section shall not include ancillary services and self-service stations or out parcel developments. One of the pieces that we wanted to ask the Planning and Zoning Board is 80,000 square feet the number that we need to approach here? Is it 60,000?
Actually, can I ask the board for a very short recess? Board member Polo is stuck, but she is like almost here.
Sure.
And so I don't want to have you to repeat
Sure.
a whole lot of things. And as we get into these, because I really do think the commission wants to hear y'all's advice and your
They do.
thoughts on this. So can we take
Wait.
5 minutes, go to the bathroom? Ms. Polo will get here, Board member Polo will get here, and then we won't have to repeat. Correct? We are 5-minute adjourn, 5 minutes.
Next page.
We don't need a Supreme Court, like,
Opinion. Very appropriate.
yeah, Gaston loses, fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Got the jitters. Yeah. I don't watch basketball anyway, so.
I only watch it when the fourth
Might not
game
like the answer.
lights are in it, and they're never lit. So
Frustrating.
Yeah.
TJ's office, it's not. We want it just as badly.
I thought you started getting a.
Yes.
Yeah. Charge!
Ironically, they built a football stadium. I thought with burrowing out, yeah. From the football stadium.
Thank you guys for that recess. This is an important ordinance, so I want to make sure we have as many members as we can. We got to the very first question, and why don't,
We didn't get to the question.
we didn't quite get to the question. We stopped before we got to the
Yes.
question. So go ahead and
All right.
first question, first topic of consideration
Yes.
for the big box large scale retail ordinance is
80,000 square feet. Is that the winning number? And so the next slide is going to help you with a little bit of that. So here are a few things for you when you're driving around and thinking in your mind. The 2,000 square feet is roughly a Main Street a retailer. Then you have the next blue, aqua blue there is 17,000 square feet. That's a large drugstore. That's a CVS, a Walgreens, just for your mind, just so you can wrap your head around it. The red is a 50,000 square foot roughly large supermarket. That's about like a Publix that we have here. Our Publix is a little bit bigger, and then you add on the extra retailers on the side. I think Publix ended up being closer to 68,000 with the extra retailers.
With the inline plaza,
But the whole
Right.
plaza itself, what is that?
That is almost 80, 69,
it's 69.
almost 70, 69. The whole plaza.
Yeah, that's
The
the
store
picture I wanna
itself.
see, the whole plaza.
Okay, so that's almost 80.
Okay.
Sorry, it's almost 70. Sorry. It's me and numbers, okay? Not good. Not good. And then as you can see there, the 125, the aqua down below is the 125,000. That's like a Home Depot. And then the next dark blue one is a Walmart Supercenter at 250,000 square feet. So,
Stacey, are you asking us for the max that we want to see?
no, this is the minimum that you want to see to push you over into
special
this
exception.
ordinance.
Yep.
So and then, I think my question here is, if you put a hard, fast number on it, do people just say, well, I wanted to build a 79,999 square foot so that I don't fall
We will
under
get
it?
those.
Okay.
Yes, we will get
So,
those.
is there a way to give a range and say, we believe a big box may begin at 60
Mm-hmm.
to 80?
So one of the options, staff, we've been slicing and dicing this since we started this process, and we had come up with a couple, like maybe 40 to 60, 61 to 75, and that we had a couple ranges. But we know very well that everybody's coming in at that 999.99 right underneath it. So you just have to be comfortable with whatever the number is that you come up with. A range would work, because we would capture, if you took a Rural King at the smaller maybe end and a larger end of the Walmart, you would get a range where, could they change their plan enough to fall into the 9999 on the low side and not have to worry about it? Sure. Or we
So
just,
staff ended up at 80 because
We-
it's too big to be the
That's
large
what our
square,
zip.
too small to be.
that's what you
the other
zipped.
things.
Yes.
So I can't hedge that to fall in. 80 would never be big enough for a super Walmart, and it'd be way too big for a
Maybe.
standalone Publix without the whole complex.
That's correct. That's
Stacy,
correct.
quick question.
Yep.
Do you guys in your research know what is the minimum that a Walmart would even entertain? Like,
It
do
would-
they say, hey, if it's less than 90,000 feet, we're not interested in it?
Yeah, it
Right.
would be their, most likely it would be their neighborhood Walmart grocer.
Right, I've seen those before. Is
Yes,
that-
and that's in between the 17 and the 50. So what are they like? What did we find, like 25?
But as far as, so the gist, and forgive me guys, but like, being on the forums and the admin on the forums, I see every single comment that comes through on these things.
Oh, yeah.
So the question I have is, I feel like the biggest concern, and I'm pretty sure that my Facebook people will somehow quote this differently. My biggest concern is, from what I'm hearing, is the super Walmarts, right? Like this massive box reels. Now, I'm pretty sure they're gonna be like, we want no Walmart, but we gotta weigh things here. So my concern is like the super Walmart. Would the super Walmart, if we say 80,000 to 100,000 is our range for the big box.
They have to go through this process,
Would
no,
Walmart be like, we're not interested because we need a minimum of 125,000?
no, because Walmarts, we learned in our research, range from the Walmart market to the 250,000 square foot, super Walmart. They'll make whatever, they have the flexibility in their multiple different floor plans to fit into large-scale retail. Yes. Special exception process, which we haven't gotten to yet. So hold our thoughts on this, think about the size. Let's move on and we can come back to this and discuss it, because it's something we need to get an answer or a good push forward.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Is this just for one entity, basically?
That's what a large-scale retailer is.
But not like the Publix that has the multiple?
Well, that's the other question that we have. Are you okay with one building being that, or what about the total when it built like Publix? Publix built the whole structure together at one time. So keep that in mind. We'll move forward and we'll come back to this, because I know this is going to be, I don't know that we have the perfect answer, and we all know that they're going to come in right under, so they don't have to go through the processes. But I will say, one of the things that we have also learned in talking to some of the large-scale retailers, they want to come. They will do a lot of the things that we ask them to do in a lot of these regulations going forward. So we'll touch base on some of that stuff as well. So how did we get here? I know you like these slides because it helps folks see where we've been and how we are getting, why we're here today. So in March 11, 2024, the City Commission received a presentation on the big box retailer from my predecessor, Brian Thomas. In June 10th, you all voted in, the City Commission voted in the zoning in progress, or the stay on new retail applications over 80,000 square feet. August 26, 2024, City Commission provided additional direction to staff. That was my first meeting with the City Commission at that time. And I was trying to take what had already been talked about and kind of get a little more guidance from the City Commission. And then in January, we came back because we had another potential option to the City Commission to maybe do a little more direction, because in these areas where these big box retailers were going to be going, which is the 26 corridor and the 2741, is where our already existing really good overlay, maybe with a few tweaks, district is. So these businesses would be falling in those overlay district areas. So we came back in January and said to the City Commission, are you okay, instead of creating an entirely different ordinance for the large-scale retail, are you okay with us melding it into and upgrading some of our overlay district requirements? Board said yes, sent staff on their way, and this is why we are here today. So the large-scale retail without guidance will create monolithic structures and encourage blight. Consumer overlap with local businesses, consume more land than is reasonably needed on an average day, typically overparked for peak retail holidays. As you all know, the parking lots are only filled up on Black Friday and Christmas Eve. And they bring a lot of minimum wage jobs. City desires to preserve our small town character and local businesses. The small town character was the number one goal of our comprehensive future land use plan. Our element was to preserve the small town character and local businesses. The current zoning code, we have no limit on size of large scale development outside of what was zipped recently by the City Commission. No or less development standards for commercial retail developments. Large-scale retail co-locates with high-traffic roads, hence our wanting to put it through to the overlay, because they're kind of coinciding. And if the commercial is on the overlay within the State Road 26 and 45 corridors, there are certain design standards. These updated design requirements will address how buildings are situated on the property and will address how the community perceives these buildings by upholding the greenway into town, making entrances easily identifiable, making the sites easy to navigate, and making buildings and sites traditional and less low-cost industrial. Housekeeping changes not in the overlay standards. So when we asked the city commission if we might be able to take some of the large-scale retail stuff and put it in the overlay district, we had been, how long had we been administering the overlay district? Roughly 2 years, year and a half? Yeah. We found some little glitches in this overlay district where we felt like we weren't getting really everything we wanted to get out of it, and we thought this was the perfect opportunity to not only open up the large-scale retail and put it in, but open the overlay standards and maybe enhance some of those. So you're going to see some of those enhancements in this ordinance as well. We went ahead and we added, housekeeping change not in the overlay standards, which is the definition that we just talked about earlier, deleted conflicting design requirements in 4.2.36, which you'll see crossed out in your ordinance. We added large-scale retail as a special exception in commercial districts, prohibited in the CBD and the commercial neighborhood. You do not want large-scale retail in your CBD, and you do not want it in our commercial neighborhood zoning districts that are, as you go out, neighboring the CBD. And generally, we put it in commercial, not permitted in other districts, limited in ILW district, it's not relevant to the large-scale retail. Industrial has its own rules and regulations for large buildings. If large buildings, that's where they're going to want to go if they're not a high retail. If they're industrial in nature, they're already got their regulations in the ILW. Housekeeping changes in the overlay standards. So we updated some design requirements. We have additional slides ahead to explain some of those in greater detail that John Paul will show you. We removed staff exemption ability. Exemptions will be granted by appropriate board at time of design and when the time of design is considered. Design is approved by BOA via site plan. Consolidated multiple exemptions under single section, and we authorize city manager to allow field changes that don't change in the character. And I think we may have a better update on the language for that eventually. Housekeeping changes in the overlay standards, added special exceptions unique to overlay district, specifically to automobile sales, RV, boat, and ATV sales. We added prohibited uses. We don't want any mobile home or manufactured home sales, ancillary outdoor storage visible from the right-of-way in our wonderful entry corridors to the city, in whether you're going north-south or east-west. We have our current overlay design requirements, and we were giving, we want people to pick 3 of these. So you can go through the list. I don't need to explain it to you, but we were finding that people were picking the easiest way out to make something look remotely nice. So we said, okay, so we're going to have people, they're going to select 3 of these, and then we have the current overlay design requirements does not adequately, excuse me. I have sign it, like the pollen has just killed my voice today. Does not adequately preserve small town character. It's duplication of requirements that will lead to under-designing, and it will not accomplish city goal to encourage better design. It does not effectively address the large-scale retail and will leave staff to negotiate on behalf of the Board of Adjustment. We don't want to be doing that. The summary of proposed changes. So we'll build on the current requirements that we had in the overlay, strengthen quality design requirements, capture small town character through human scale design. That's something to remember as we go through this. John Paul's going to show you some pictures where we take monolithic buildings and we turn it into more of a human scale. Publix did it with some of their different, what do you call them? Facade, different pieces of the facade. They've done that with the human scale design. Strengthen design and values-based minimum standards and building and site considerations. We have created 2 tables that we think will be much easier for folks just to look at the tables. Here's your tables, here's your requirements, required design and optional design elements. So we want people to pick so many from the required, and then we know we're going to get some good product. And then if they want to go above and beyond, here's the optional ones that they can pick as well. And we'll show you those tables later on. Required categories specific to these is building, location, and orientation, probably one of the most important, the second probably being parking lots and where they're located. Walls greater than 50 feet, the large-scale retail and multi-tenant buildings, roofs, entrances, windows, building masses, shapes, overall, big box, outdoor dining areas, and wall signs.
Stacy, we're talking more about the overlay district itself than just the big box at this point. All the changes that are gonna go into the overlay district, and then the changes that are in the overlay district are the same standards that the big box has to adhere to.
That is correct.
Okay.
And then we're getting
We're gonna need a
to,
little bit of coaching on human scale and those kind of things.
yes,
That's coming later in the presentation.
that's coming, yep,
All right.
exactly. I'm almost there. Optional categories, remember we said we were gonna have required and optional, so at least the optional ones, the building location, orientation, parking lots, walls, the roofs, entrances, and windows. Now, we're gonna talk about the zoning districts that these can go in. So we deleted in your code, you saw, we deleted 4.2.36. There was a lot of contradictory language. It requires all multifamily, industrial, and commercial to be Florida vernacular. Created duplicate citywide regulations, lighting, signs, landscaping. We don't wanna make everybody do the same type of design, because then it's gonna get really boring, and so we're taking a lot of this stuff out. We incorporated portions into the overlay, like the building orientation and the facade treatments, because there was some really good language in that code section. We didn't want to delete the whole thing, so we carried some of those things over into this code section. So in commercial districts, we're gonna allow large-scale retail as a special exception in commercial general, commercial intensive. It is not in your code. We looked at it today. We were like, oh my goodness, we forgot to add commercial intensive. It's going to be added in into the ordinance going to the city commission. Commercial automotive and commercial highway. So these will be the zoning categories that folks can request large-scale retail, and you will have a special exception approval going with it. Commercial districts, large-scale retail prohibited in, as I mentioned earlier, CBD and commercial neighborhoods. We don't want these large, big boxes in those areas. And retail generally not permitted in other districts. So, the district boundaries and clarification. This is another thing that we are gonna look at for some guidance. And Mayor may be able to help in some of this stuff, because he was here when these first came through. And it may be just, it didn't make it all the way through to the paper for the map. And so we're gonna go through here real quick. So district boundaries, we don't feel like there's any clarification needed on the district boundaries, but the roadway buffers map, we need clarification, and the discrepancy between the table and the map in the code. John Paul can talk to this a little bit more even than I can, because he's actually put this in use. But we were under the impression that the overlay district guidelines should encompass USA boundary to USA boundary east-west, USA boundary, or city boundary, USA, north-south. So with that being the case, the words were not saying that in the code. So here is the map that was in our code when we had a USA that was a circle. We now have a more defined USA, so that is one update that's gonna happen. We had different zones, 1, 2, and 3, and you can see there, you can see the difference in the color coding for what foot buffer was required in each of those different zones. This is the language that talks about those roadway buffers, and the description does not match the map. So we need to know for the recommendation to the city commission, do we want the words to be the description, or do we want the map to be the description? So John Paul, you may wanna,
Sorry, just want to add to that. So the roadway buffers is the width of the landscape buffer that they're putting in front of the properties. Zone 1 is 15 feet wide. You're getting closer to the center of the city, and you're bringing everything closer to the road. Zone 2 is a 25-foot buffer, bringing it out a little bit more, but it's widening and setting it back and creating more of that greenway corridor that the commission was looking to preserve. And then Zone 3 is the 50-foot wide landscape buffer. So trying to replicate what we have now today as a pasture or just you're taking the commercial off of the view of the driver coming into the city, and it's a greenway that you're looking at. And that's the greenest version of that buffer. It'll be the most robust buffer that an applicant would have to be providing. And the question is that this map shows the difference between Zone 2 and Zone 3, the 25 and the 50, being the overlay. The USA boundary. So 202, Northwest 46, Southwest 46, and county line. And then outside of that, you'd go up to the 50. The table that's in the code that was adopted describes it a bit differently. It brings the 50-foot buffer inside the USA, and it goes generally from 218th on State Road 26, from 218th out to the USA is a 50-foot wide buffer. So that would include like Destiny Church, the SAP property, Tanglewood. Those developments would have to provide a 50-foot buffer. And then when you get closer between like Newberry Lane and 218th, Kokomo Ranch and the Equestrian Center, that would be a 25-foot buffer in that area. Of those two, which one was it that the commission really decided to go with, or was the intent to adopt? Because right now we have both versions adopted, and it's not clear to us which one we should be administering. We unfortunately have to administer the most strict, but we don't know if that's the intent of the commission. And so we want to make sure if that this buffer was to provide only 25 feet, which seems reasonable for commercial developments within the USA to provide, and then outside of the USA, I'm not sure what type of development you'd get outside of the USA.
That's my question.
Yeah.
To me, this map is what the commission intended.
Okay.
Why would we dictate an overlay outside of the urban service area? Because nothing is supposed to happen
Okay, perfect.
outside of the urban service area.
So this is what we have been administering?
Memory.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what we have been administering. We just want to make sure that we're doing it correctly and carrying forward the watershed.
The whole idea here was the tunnel effect.
Yeah.
So you cross over the urban service line, you still have some green space, gets a little narrower, and then everything's round up. But again, I don't want to wow. Just gonna say, a real Florida Gator were to call that. Is anybody else's memory different than?
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Personally, I don't know. Better.
Outside the urban service is supposed to be ag land anyway, so.
Yes, sir.
I mean, yeah, probably.
Perfect, yeah. The reason it's critical now is we are going to probably be seeing some applications coming through in the very near future for these properties. So I just want to make sure we're administering it correctly and it's updated while we're touching the overlay, while we have it open, that we have the correct map in there.
While we're talking about footage, and this may be another question, but I was a little uncomfortable with the 500 feet that we landed on. Again, just because you begin to play this game, right? So our overlay district is 500 feet off of the roadway.
Yes.
Or is there another caveat, or what's visible, or is it just a 500 foot?
It's just limited to 500 feet. Anything beyond the 500 foot, the overlay no longer applies.
So if I have a building that extends past 500, does one half of it have to be in the overlay standards and the back half of it not have to be?
In the strictest interpretation, yes.
And do we have caveats in the overlay district that prevent me from saying, well, my first 500 feet is parking lot, and at 501, I build my building?
So currently, no, but with the rewrite that we're proposing, we do require no more than one drive aisle and 2 parking aisles. So that's, I'll show you a picture of that real quick, what that looks like. Tioga. So that's how they have set up their site with 2 parking aisles and 1 drive aisle. And so forcing the building to be closer so that frontage could not be all parking. So we're trying to address the circumventing of the regulations
I
by,
thought there were some caveats that kind of, maybe that's one of them, that sort of forced them to bring the building closer to the road or closer to the green space and parking more in the back. Is that the stipulation, or are there more things that encourage them to do that as well? Because we wanted the facade to be in the overlay district, so that's nicer, and then once you get behind it, I think that's a debatable question, do we want that to still look nice or not? Right?
yeah. So our current overlay requirements require only that the building closest to the right away have their main entrance face the street. That's the current requirement. And so we're looking to strengthen that to encourage more of what the City Commission sought as inspiration, Town of Tioga, and other developments around Florida and Georgia that they thought were quality developments.
Can we add a clause that say if part of your structure is inside the overlay district, the entirety of the structure has to adhere to the overlay district?
Yes, we can do that.
Is that an expression of joy? Like, yes, you were hoping someone would say that, or is that
I'd put it in initially, and then I took it out, thinking that it might have been too strict or too overbearing of a regulation, just considering the political environment of Newberry, being a more of a relaxed regulatory structure. And it's reassuring to hear that we share similar values, so that's hence the smile.
It was weird to me when we had the 500 limit, like, okay, we're just going to start playing this game where I've got 500 feet of parking lot, and then,
We already had people trying to play the game.
right. So, it's all of these, same thing with the square footage. Like, once you put a number on it, then I just start figuring out how to try to work around the number. So, I like the green space. I really do like the way that Tioga has kind of the stormwater right up front. They've got some landscaping, so it sort of hides the buildings. It keeps that moving from ag down. And I don't know, same thing with square, I don't know what else it should be. There's got to be some kind of a number. I get that, but it also, like if I can't just put, 5 feet in and do a nice corner and then the rest of it is different, right? So it seems to me that once I'm in, and the whole facade, the whole building, there's got to be a back. I get that. There's got to be a place to take out the trash, but.
Our whole hope is that folks come in as a unified development, and
Yeah.
we don't always get that. Most of the time we do. We've already had people working with us on this 500-foot. Well, if the parking's up here, they've already been doing that. So
Right.
we would love it if we had something in there. Like, once it starts, it needs to continue through. One thing we'll talk about here in a little bit after John Paul's done with the design standards is parcels and the orientation on the actual parcels, which becomes important, because there's a couple different ways to look at that, which we'll explain in a little bit.
Okay. Any other thing about the footage, the step down inside the urban service area? Board Member Parker?
Just randomly, do you know about how wide that is in front of Tioga? I'm trying to mentally picture it.
Oh, got you. Yeah, we'll come
I
to.
think it's close to it's different spots because it kind of goes,
I would say 25 meters.
yeah, I was thinking 75 to 100 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I can only do visual distances by meter. So the design standards, which is what we're getting into now. So design includes both the building as well as the site. How the buildings are placed on the property, where they're placed, how they're oriented, and how they address the street and the rest of the development as well. Trying to create some sort of cohesiveness in the actual development, so when users are entering the site, it's easy to navigate. And not necessarily just by a large wayfinding sign as you drive in, as if you're in a tour of a mall inside your vehicle. More it's just intuitive. We're trying to hopefully encourage some of our local design firms to come with good designs for sites, so people can just naturally go where they need to go. There are two tables. One of them's like minimum requirements, so non-negotiables, you have to do these. And then the optionals, they still have to do them, but they get to pick which one they do. And they address different elements of either site or building design. Just in summary, is site design and parking lots, building design and exterior treatments, and amenities and outdoor dining. So if we're just going to break it up into three large categories, those would be the three large categories that we're dealing with here. I'll just skip past this because Stacy already touched the topics in the categories, and each one has like its own requirements and regulation that follows. I wanted to talk about massing because it's not a word that people use a lot. It's really relegated to the architectural realm, but it is something that comes into play when you're talking about big box, because big box is literally just a big box. That's how they earned that name, and they are usually like lean-to type industrial structures. They don't offer a lot of variation in them. And with that, that can be very, for a site user, I think we did a tour of the Chiefland Walmart, and that's a good example of how stark of a environment it can create, where it's very, you just feel like you're in an industrial warehouse district opposed to being at a place where you're going to buy groceries for your family, or a new outfit for your child or something. And those places, going from like a local business, which has more of a personal touch, to a big box, which has better prices because they can purchase in bulk, you lose that small town feel that you would get at a local business. And so encouraging those big boxes to incorporate some variation in that big box is what we're talking about here. And that variation is called massing. So taking that big box and cutting it up a little bit. They don't need to do too much. We're bringing it in pretty low at only 15% of the total volume needs to be either added to the big box or subtracted from the big box. And these are graphics used as examples that are incorporated into the code to help the designers as they're coming in and creating their designs for a Walmart or a Home Depot, to just demonstrate to them what would be acceptable to the city to break up that monolithic structure, that large warehouse.
So, John Paul, are you saying that you could have a 70,000 square foot box, but if you're willing to do one of these massing and create it as a different level, something like that, that wouldn't count towards the overall square footage? So I could do a 70,000 square foot box, and then I mass in an interesting architectural way, and that adds 20,000 square feet. I'm still out of the large retail because the big box itself was 70, the other is 20. We're going to let you have a bigger facility if you will do it in an architecturally interesting way. Is that the strategy here?
No, it's so the separation.
This is a mandate.
Yes. So if you are a big box, you must do this. You must break up the massing of that box. You must make it more than just a box.
How is massing different from what Publix did with the strip mall kind of thing?
So one of the things that in the second bullet point here, arcades and entrances don't count towards the massing requirement. What Publix did is they would have not, if Publix was over 80,000 square feet, would not have satisfied this requirement because they did not, we're not counting entrances towards the breaking up of that massing. A breaking up of that massing could look something like one of these corner pieces. I don't know if I really got it, but like a tower feature on the corner to add to the volume of the structure, or just something that breaks up the box, essentially.
I love this concept because at the end of the day, and I do not mean to pick on my friends at Chiefland, but that when I think about this issue, that's the Walmart that I think about. There's gotta be 20, 30 acres of asphalt in the parking lot, and then it's just a big box.
And no landscaping
And
at
any-
all anywhere.
And I feel it every time I go there, and I walk an hour to get into the store in the sun, and by the time you get in the sun, you're burned, and you're sweating, and you're like, I was just in the parking lot, how did this happen to me, you know?
It was 187 feet. For parking for that stormwater.
So, I mean, so 50 feet's really not a
Something
very
like that.
onerous,
No, it's not very big.
you know, 50 feet doesn't get you a third into that, so.
It's not as big as people think. Yeah.
Which means that 25 and 15 are nothing.
Right up on the street. Eliano's is 15. So if you want to use that as an example of what 15 looks like as far as the landscape buffer, that's it. And that feels like it's right up on the street, doesn't it? Yeah.
John Paul, do we have any projects in the midst that if we were to change that and say, no, it's 150, 25, 15, would we screw up anybody that's in the process?
We just got an application for a site plan for the old Barnett Bank site, but any changes to that between the two maps that we were looking at tonight wouldn't affect that particular one. They'd still be in Zone 1.
And they've been
Yeah.
I mean, in my mind, and can you go back to the slide that has, I don't want to go back to the step down necessarily, but
This one?
the one, yeah, and it's the one that's over here is the one we're going.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
The idea there is to leave ag, still kind of feel like you're in ag and kind of narrow down. So I think at 50 feet, I'm not sure exactly that you create the effect that we're trying to create. And maybe maybe there should be 3 zones or 4 zones, or, you know, I'm happy with we got 3 right now. I'm happy with that. I don't mind getting to 15 because I think Ileana's is probably appropriate by the time you're in the core. But right there, you know, at that first 202 to 218, I think that probably should be 100 feet, you know, and then we could have 50 feet to Canterbury, whatever that is, and then you go,
So move the orange down more?
right, move the orange would come in.
purple, the yellow or purple.
Yeah, this blue
Which is
would be
50.
100.
Okay.
It's currently 50. This would turn into 100. This would turn into 50. Right here could be 20. Is this Publix kind of around in there?
Yes, sir.
So that would be, and then by the time you get to the Publix, this section here would be the 15. And then
So
again-
no 25?
Let's go.
No, I
Let me
was-
write that down.
Here's a
I
remember
didn't-
urgent.
random question here. So Tioga has no turning lanes. They do have a traffic light. It has no turning lanes to get into it.
Yeah.
Is it 50 miles an hour is the speed limit there?
It's about 45. Yeah. Oh, is it 50? Yeah. Yeah. So a recommended speed?
Hopefully nobody in ASO is listening. No, the only reason I ask is because I'm pretty sure that that's like a 70 mile an hour zone. And it's 60 where we're at, but technically everybody drives. Yeah, you can't drive 60 anymore.
We are working on changing
We
that.
are, yes.
What do you mean working on changing it? To
Change the
slow it
speed.
down?
Yeah.
You better not be slowing that down. That better go faster.
Slow it down.
We're looking at a holistic approach to 26 coming into town.
Yeah. Yeah. We think by the time you get
So
to
the only reason I brought that up was
Canterbury,
the space, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
I was just, if we shrink it, I feel like it would be more dangerous on a 60 mile an hour road.
here's what I'd actually like to do. If everyone's in agreement that it should start at 100 and scale down,
Yeah.
let's give it to staff to figure out, not based on a footage, but based on roads, something that makes sense and is
Dividers,
concrete.
yeah.
Some dividers that make sense, because I think that's a good comment about turn lanes and those kinds of things. There's some considerations before we get in front of the commission, but you get the gist of, we want a bigger green space when we first come in, and then narrow it down.
And
Call me crazy, but even 150, I mean, I might be pushing it for people, but that thing's almost 200 in front of Tioga. Even that feels
Yeah.
very much like it's there. I mean, it's not hiding anywhere, you see it. It's right.
That's
it
also
still
the
is
height
on
of the
road,
buildings, too.
Even with that.
I think the challenge is to provide the applicant or allow the applicant to make use of that space, even with that being a setback. How can that also benefit the developer? And for Tioga, it provides an essential service for the site, the stormwater. And we do encourage them to put the stormwater in front as much as they possibly can. However, it's not a hard and fast requirement for them because oftentimes topology will dictate where the water is going to run. And honestly, in our particular area of the Florida, you want to maximize your usage of natural topology because water's been going to certain areas and is absorbed in certain areas well, and won't have that propensity for sinkholes that we do see when we force stormwater into an area and do start carving out some of that earth, so.
I'm sorry for the repeat on this one, but
Yes,
just
sir.
to Jordan's point, the current business is in place now. So I don't want to say DCC is a business, but the church that's there, you got Greenfield across the street, the nursery, stuff that's already currently there. Next to the funeral home is all fencing. That's really butt up pretty closely to that roadway. Would this necessarily impact any of the current businesses that are there? Are they gonna have to do something to their parking spaces or change anything whatsoever in the landscape?
No, we've carved them out.
Okay,
Yeah, with the adoption of this, if you're existing, you're considered what people call grandfathered, or just, pre-existing,
sorry
so,
for the repeat question, I just kinda want to make sure that we're crystal clear that the current businesses will be grandfathered into the
absolutely,
current landscape.
yeah.
So we're agreement that we want a wider, and if it's 100, it might be 125. I think the advice from this board is we want that green effect to be as pronounced as it could be without being egregious overstep. Right?
Gotcha.
And if, so 100 may be a good place to start, but you guys may look at it and say it really should be 125 or.
You're okay with us bringing that back bringing that to the city commission? I think our next meeting is the 14th. So we would do divisions and bring it to the city commission with that recommendation after this discussion.
Agreed?
Yeah. You need a motion or anything on that?
Well, we'll put it all kind of in a motion at the end, because we will need, but we still have to do we gotta do the design standards.
Yeah, I'll be quick, yeah. So massing, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood, not just you folks, but the folks that may be at home listening, what massing was and what's being asked here and how we're attempting to break up the big box. Picked from examples that folks in the community like. They like the new Publix and they like Tioga. And so a lot of the pictures I'm going to be sharing are going to be based on those. And I just wanted to highlight certain elements that Publix, just being a good neighbor before the overlay was even adopted, had done a lot of great design elements, incorporated a lot of great design elements. And here I'm just highlighting some of them. Sorry, some of my arrows and the fonts are a little messed up from the way I'd originally set them up, but I think we still get the point. So prominent entrances are now required. They're not optional. Protrusions are going to be required if you have walls greater than 50 feet in length. And so anything that's not just a single out parcel, an inline plaza or a large-scale retail establishment will have to do some sort of protrusion, which is a projection, and the code is now specific in saying that a protrusion less than 8 inches doesn't count. So it could not just be like a 2x4 with some foam on it. They have to do an actual architectural element. Now it's just going to be a couple of 2x4s or maybe a 2x6 and a 2x4, but it's a little bit more prominent. It creates shadows and a little bit more interest in the
We
design.
now talking about the list that they can pick 2 of these things. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Here's a list of things. You pick 2 from this, 3 from this. Gotcha.
Yes. Stucco scoring needs to be a little bit deeper than it is today. Publix that did a great job, and their stucco scoring is deep enough where it's visible from a distance. You can see those lines. They have a shadow there, and so they have definition. Varied roof lines in the overlay code today. We're carrying that forward. The only thing is we're limiting the height of those parapets. They can't be more than 5 feet above the flat roof line. Sometimes businesses will put in very, this is a problem in the 70s, if you see some 70 buildings, huge parapets, and then use that as sign area. Or I think bowling alleys did it a lot, movie theaters did it a lot. And it's just a design that hasn't been carried forward or really appreciated. It now has kind of like a niche appreciation because of its uniqueness to the time period, but not something that a lot of folks want to carry forward. Stucco scoring, I think we talked about already. We're now requiring that you either provide some sort of shade structure over an entrance to a business or recess the entrance to the business. We do live in Florida, and sometimes you need to stay outside the door a little bit, and having a little bit of protection from the environment is very, very nice. Largest tenant. Oh. Okay, yes. For larger tenants or the anchor tenant that would be in a plaza, we're requiring some sort of centralized pathway from the parking lot to the entrance of that tenant. It won't be for every single tenant, it's just the largest tenant in that space. And so Publix did that. The one in Jonesville is a little bit different. It's wider and striped, similar to this one, but it is a much wider defined pedestrian path where folks can freely walk back and forth, and cars know that that's pedestrian space. Let me slow down and stop. Let me let them go into the store with their children, hopefully. Yeah. But just having that sense of security from, parking your vehicle and getting into the store safely.
Paul, is this picture human scaling?
Yes. So the way.
Exactly, yes. One of the things I wanted to add is this, they have brought it down, and you can see where the 2400 is, and that, the roof, that's the shade structure, that has brought a taller piece down to human scale by putting the different architectural appendages and things like that there. Yeah, the shopping cart. The one thing that we think is lacking in the Publix is trees up against the building, some landscaping that would break that up just on the shade side of things. Not a lot, but we think a couple of trees through there, like a little less trees than Jonesville Publix, would have helped with a little bit. They could have utilized the nature to break up some of those walls. And they chose not to in this case, but you could see where it would be nice to have some trees there on the inside. Now, their landscape plan out by the road is amazing, and maybe that's where they spent their money. But we as staff thought maybe some trees might help.
Yeah.
So to interrupt you on that one, the reason behind the no on the trees is it's an insurance issue. Anytime an inspection is done on a building and we get it, the inspector, the first thing they say, trees too close to the building, touching the building, somewhat near the building, they need to trim it, they need to cut it back to scale. So that's why a lot of businesses have started cutting back on the trees like that near the buildings. I love the idea, I'm all for planting more trees, but I can understand why the company or the owner of that building is scaling back on the trees. And then I feel like if you try to enforce that, it's gonna hurt them more because of the fact that now my insurance is not gonna insure me, or they're gonna have me do a recommendation to cut this, scale this back, or cut it off, and then city's telling me I need to do this, and that's where like two conflicting issues may arise. I'm not against it, I'm 100% for it, I just understand why. But I would definitely love to see more trees like they did in Jonesville in between the cars and all that area, that 100%.
So we did add that landscaping requirement for buildings that have walls greater than 50 feet, but we specifically call out dwarf species. So no full-sized live oaks going up against a tree. It would be more
I've
of
seen
like
it for
a...
even for palm trees, that I'm like, that's not gonna do it. Like, that fawn is not gonna do anything to the building. And the inspector's like, we need to have that cut down. I'm like, no, you don't. That's stupid. That's palm tree.
The Publix in Jonesville, though, has trees along so you have kind of the awning up against the building, and then you have, because I've many a time stood in the shade of those trees.
They have a much wider sidewalk, or walkway of their building than this Publix has.
I like that. I think if we can say that your walkway needs to be a little wider so that
To
those,
accommodate further from the building.
because I agree with
More
Naeem,
species.
if they try to do it there, it'd be too close. But if they had the sidewalks that they have in Jonesville, that works
You
really
understood
well.
my point. It wasn't against this.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I think it's great.
Well, that's why it's an optional, one of the,
Okay.
if they pick it, they're
Yeah.
taking on that liability, like you said.
I wasn't thinking so much about the liability as I was thinking about the businesses that complain about the trees that we have
Blocking signage.
blocking the signage here, and how would I hit that and still be able to see all the signs and all the businesses and those kinds of things, so, but it's not like the prominent entrance is a mandate, you don't get to pick and choose that one. The protrusion is a mandate, you don't get to pick and choose that one. The rest, all of the things on this slide that are all mandates are after I get by those two, they're things that I could pick and choose from, I don't have to do all of them.
Correct.
So I could do the trees if that works for me, because it's one business and my sign is gonna be Publix and there's not gonna be everybody else that I'm blocking.
Yes.
I just did it so that people on Facebook can stop being annoying that we cut down all the trees.
All right? I agree, the golf cart, shopping cart threw off the human scale. But,
Certainly.
I'm with you.
So more to human scales, and one thing that we touch on that the current overlay doesn't now are multi-story buildings, which may or may not be coming in the near future. We've seen some applications that entertain the idea of apartment buildings, et cetera. So addressing some of those things by when these structures are that tall and of the same material treatment, they can sometimes consume or overwhelm the individual. If you guys have walked down New York City streets, those things are just terrifying. And this will just help break it up and make it still feel like you're in a small town. You have that difference in more earthy materials closer to the ground, and more of your just, all right, we need to protect this building from moisture and water above that ground floor. And that's what we're looking to achieve with the overlay.
Before you continue off of
Yes,
that
sir.
feature, is there something in our regs now as far as how many stories they can go?
Just height limitations, and
So there is a height limit. What's the height limit now?
generally 72 feet, which I understand to be the limitation established by the ladder of a vehicle, rescue vehicle.
Would we be able to, this helps keep the scale down? I mean, 72 is how technically 7 stories, because every story is about 10 feet, 9 to 10 feet.
Depends if you have ground store.
So St. Augustine currently has their regulations even lower than that, if I'm not mistaken. Is there a way that we can actually put something into? I just, in the sense of, I want to protect in the future, if when, the day that we're not around, for our kids and other generations, to know that we did our part to say, hey, we're not trying to go 7 stories, because at some point, builders are gonna get greedy and want to go higher. So at that point, I'm like, hey, we put a stop and said, no more than 3 stories in this area of Newberry. And then obviously, the agriculture, no one's touching that. But as far as our downtown districts and that USA, how do we go about, while we're here, putting a limit on how many stories? Because 70 is too high for me personally. for
I
Newberry.
agree. I think Gainesville is a perfect example too.
Right.
They had that height restriction forever, and as soon as they pulled it off, I mean.
Look at Krispy Kreme, when you go to Krispy Kreme Donuts, it looks like you're in the movie Up, like it's like the little building and you're surrounded by giants.
Yeah, but also money is gonna play a big
Right.
role in that. Most people never can afford to go over 3 stories.
Yeah, I just feel like if this is a place to protect ourselves for the future,
Yeah.
I don't see why we shouldn't try to put something in there.
The overlay is regulations above and beyond, or can create relaxation. So if in the overlay you want to address it there only, we can add it now. But if you want that citywide, we have to address each.
No, I agree. I think, not sure that's the right conversation for the overlay district as it is for like.
The LDRs generally.
Yeah, this brought up, I'm sorry that I went on this way, but this picture here kind of brought that concern up. Where, I don't want to see downtown Newberry becoming we can go up to 7 stories and now we have 10 seven-story buildings in downtown Newberry, and that just kills our whole charm.
That's in effect today, just so you know.
I know.
Yeah,
That's
they
why
can, yeah.
Well, to her point, I don't think anybody right now is gonna build a seven-story building in downtown Newberry. It's more
Yeah.
of setting the standard to protect our future generations.
Absolutely.
I mean, St. Augustine is beautiful, and there's a reason why people travel there. It's that old school, still
Mm-hmm.
traditional, and they have that strict guidelines that they cannot build over a certain height,
Yeah,
just because of the fact that they don't want high rise. They don't want 7 stories.
yeah. Just being pragmatic about it, I think that we deserve to give that more consideration and look at what the impacts would be financially from a tax perspective for the city. If we were to limit the entire city to a much more reduced height, long-term services and maintenance of those services and facilities may or may not be impacted. And I think that's something that we should probably look at, like what's the lowest we can go and what would be a good in-between from what is there today and what we're considering changing it to. So,
And that will be coming, depending on how we go with the land development code, that will be something we can definitely examine as we examine each of our zoning districts.
but the overlay sets the tone as people enter town. So if this is something you want in the overlay, we can do it now.
I mean, the overlay only goes back 500 feet, so I
Yeah.
think that's gonna be commercial. Things that would go higher is gonna be further back.
I don't think the Ag Tech Park has any 7-story building. But I mean, like, this is a prime example. I think this is the safest, like that. The Tioga apartments, they're 4 stories, 3 stories is apartments, the bottom layer is retail shops. I think that's like the highest comfortable period. Anything saying that we can go up to 7 stories, I just don't wanna I don't want someone to push the envelope.
Yeah.
So, and again, I highly doubt anybody in our lifetime is gonna be doing that, but it protects our future generations from having to deal with that issue.
Yeah. Do you have a specific number as far as feet that you think?
Do we have St. Augustine's feet
42
by
feet?
chance that we can mimic?
42?
I'm guessing 42.
So that's roughly, like, that would probably be right there.
3 stories
Yeah,
max?
oh, yeah.
Because you gotta give the extra 2. David Meyer found numbers for height, 12-foot ceilings now. 10 feet, there's no more 10-foot ceilings. Or, to be able to multiply it up,
I agree.
so 42 would be 4 stories.
9 feet and then 2, yeah,
You know, apartments are a little smaller than homes, but.
right.
Yeah, and your typical ground floor commercial, if there is about 16 feet minimum and up from there. So that would limit it to maybe like you could still probably fit 3 stories into
But
that.
the most in a commercial that you're gonna see in any kind of town like this caliber, you're gonna see what's very similar to Tioga, where you're gonna have the retail space on the bottom and an apartment complex on the top, very similar to what we approved for Balance, where they have that bottom office, second floor would just be an apartment. Same thing in Town Center.
Yes.
I'm comfortable with 42, cause that's literally what we're looking at max.
I wouldn't go any higher than
Yeah.
that, though. I think that's really,
I think that's something to adopt if we can. I know, we
Let's
gotta
go.
get to
Got a
the game.
game. We also talked about mansard roofs. No, I have nothing against the 70s, by the way, but there's certain things that.
70s here a lot.
Some things from the 70s I can't wrap my head around. These mansard roofs are one of them, and so we are allowing mansard roofs. These are mansard roofs as well. They just happen to be so there's a flat roof behind them, and so these are what you would call like a faux roof necessarily. It simulates what it would look like, and they achieve that by keeping the slope pretty low. And when you get really high slopes like this is where you start to lose some of the value, and disco kicks in. Tioga we're looking at here. Just wanted to show some of the site elements that we're encouraging here. And again, our entire rewrite was just to take things that the city likes and making them minimum standards. Things that folks do on their own, like Publix has demonstrated. we're willing to do this on our own because we take pride in our product and pride in our store, and we want to show that through how we build our stores, make them accessible to the community. So here, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but here they have put the stormwater in front, and that creates that big space between. But behind that, they have those two parking aisles, one drive aisle. They carry some of that landscaping in through the access drive, which we're having as an option in one of the tables. They have a central amenity to the site, and their parking is just kind of throughout the development. It's more natural and less clustered in the front. We've seen this image just showing the limitations as the amount of parking that can go in front of a building. And this would be the closest building. So you could still have your typical development that looks like this, where your big box is set back, and your front parcels are all out parcels. And only there is where they're putting the one drive aisle and two parking aisles. And then behind that's the sea of parking and asphalt. But still, that just creates, and this is Butler Plaza, by the way, that still creates that separation of, commercial development and the big box from the right-of-way, and, preserving that green space and separating out those monolithic structures from view of the right-of-way. This is the little park that's in the roundabout, creative use of space. So instead of it just being a planter, this is a place where people can gather. Town Square has done the same thing. Trev Norfleet has done the same thing with his. He's made it usable space opposed to just being a field of grass, and he can activate that space. So that's things we would like to see. Brings people together, causes them to interact, and creates community. So that's it. I just wanted to give you guys a broad picture overview of some of the changes that have been put into the overlay to encourage the design that the community appreciates, that the community wants to see repeated elsewhere, and already exists in the community or just outside of it. So that's been our direction. And thanks, Stacy, for doing all that. And so the special exception, I just wanted to touch back on that. Special exception is when the board says, is this compatible? And that's what we're looking for, to give the Board of Adjustment and the Planning and Zoning Board an opportunity to weigh in. Is your big box compatible with either our community, the surrounding uses, the site itself? And that's what that special exception creates for the board and for the community, is an opportunity to weigh in. Is this compatible? Deleting some design requirements, and pulling out the good stuff from it, though, and putting that into the overlay, clarifying the buffer areas, thank you very much, and strengthening the quality of the design requirements in the overlay to, focus on the small town character, to preserve that. I wanted to ask if the board wanted these changes that we talked about this evening to come back as an informational item, or if you're comfortable with this going straight to the commission.
Let's finish the conversation and
Sure.
then we'll answer that question. So we were comfortable going straight to the commission on the 100-foot, whatever that step down is after you take a look at it. For the special exception, I guess I'm a little confused on the depth of the information that's in the ordinance and being a special exception. I understand wanting to give lots of examples, but my understanding of a special exception was this board is granting a favor, because we don't normally allow this, but we're going to accept you in this special circumstance. So if they meet everything that's in this, but the board just wants to say no, they just don't. They believe it doesn't. They have to come up with something, right? It's not compatible with the businesses that are already here. Do they have, if they've given this level of detail, do they have the right to simply say, we don't believe this is right for Newberry?
Yes, that's what the special
Exception is?
Yes.
Are you in agreement?
With special exception, we have our special exception criteria. And if they've met all those criteria, competent substantial evidence has to say exactly why the city commission is turning it down, and a lot of times those words are very hard to find.
So what is the value of the special exception? Because I thought that some value of the special exception was that because if you have an ordinance, your hands are tied. Which is what the public generally doesn't understand, right? They check all the boxes, you really don't have the value. So what is the value in the special exception? It gives us a little wiggle room?
Gives you a little wiggle room. So let's just give you an example of, we'll use one of the properties kind of close there to Publix. It's kind of on an it's an odd shape. The only place that the big box really can physically fit is in the back of the property that is right adjacent to the neighborhood. Bringing it here can help us look at maybe different ways of buffering in the back, making our buffers a little bit bigger. That's where our negotiation occurs, but an outright denial is very hard for words to come to say that, because they will say, we have met all your 10 requirements and above and beyond, and we've met all your overlay requirements. You're just denying me because you don't like what you're seeing. The special exception doesn't stop that from happening. You still have the wiggle room, but the no is there. It's a very difficult no.
So let's say Kmart is revived.
Yep.
Kmart comes back.
Yep.
Kmart wants to come to Newberry.
Yep.
If we pass this, or let's just say we pass this ordinance the way it is right now, the board wouldn't be able to either give advice against it, or the commission wouldn't be able to vote against it, just because I think, well, I don't want a Kmart.
That's correct. We can't, if they have come through and we as staff work with them diligently to get them to meet all of our special exception requirements and all the overlay requirements, because they're in the overlay district, and they come to you and you all say no, or the commission says no, that's a hard
But Scott and I-
legal pill to swallow first, because they'll be talking to Scott next, and they'll be saying, Scott will have to say to the commission, what is the competent and substantial evidence listed specifically to this project? And it's very hard to say, we don't like how tall it is, if it meets our code. We don't like the color of the paint because that's not in here.
So the special
So-
exception gives us,
It gives you the ability to
Something.
see it.
and I think that's a really important point, because in a large part, I think that's what people need, right? It's hard, people come in and they say, well, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, the other, but without a picture of this, the special exception allows these guys to say, before you even get here, you're gonna have to pay the money, have somebody do a rendering of exactly what it is you're gonna build. Don't show me a building from another state and you're gonna
Nope.
do something like this.
Show us what you're putting
What you're
right
gonna
in here.
build.
Yep.
Right? That's important. Board Member Urchin?
What can we do that we can make a special exception?
I will defer to
Where we
Mr.
can
Walker.
where we can actually say, hey, listen, we just don't feel this is a fit for Newberry, and we can.
Restrict the
By,
zoning.
by law, we're not gonna subject ourselves to a lawsuit or put the city in any kind of financial strain because we said no to somebody, because we just don't want them. They're not welcome in Newberry.
So this is where the battleground lies with the battle of experts. So you have to have something that, when you're writing your denial order, it's gotta have some sort of competent, substantial evidence from a planner that, usually there's a citizens group that's contesting it. The city may be contesting it as well, or may come up with, here's the for, here's the against. But you have to articulate on this board and at the city commission level what that specific objection is. And it has to be something that's based upon the science of planning, and it has to be in the record, and it has to have all of that. And so that's where it becomes a real battle of experts, really.
Well, I mean, I do think that you guys have beefed it up enough
That
to where
is-
it really does take away a lot of the reason that we would object. That I just wanted to have this conversation because I do believe that my understanding of a special exception was closer to what John Paul said. Yeah, if it's a special exception, you're asking for a favor. So I can just vote yay or nay without having to articulate a reason. And so it's good to hear.
I agree, yeah, with everything that's been said. I don't disagree that, a special exception is just making sure that under these other circumstances or considerations, we find it compatible, and that's the negotiation room that's afforded to the city. The example that Stacy Hecht has provided is the Walmart, and some of the preliminary plans that we've seen has put that Walmart right up to the neighborhood. And now with the special exception, they could say, without the special exception, they could say, I've met all your minimum setbacks. You're now recommending denial to me. I'm going to take this to a magistrate and circumvent you now. But with a special exception, you have the premise of having the authority to establish compatibility, and that gives you the discretion to say, move it away from the neighborhood so it is compatible without having to go through the rigmarole of creating the substantial and competent evidence and identifying who's being damaged by putting it, or who's creating the nuisance, or who's impacting somebody's quality of life by locating it so close to a neighborhood.
And the bummer about compatibility is, it is so subjective.
Yeah, I agree. We still have to get back to Board Member Parker's question about the 80,000 square foot. Any other comments on this? Okay. So does that complete the presentation, or you're?
It does.
You take it back? So
Yes.
Board Member Parker asked, and I had this question as well. So Publix is a strip plaza, right?
Yes.
Publix itself is 50,000 square feet. The whole thing is 70,000 square feet.
Yes.
Right? So a big box coming in and says, well, my Kmart is 50,000 square feet. My Kmart grocer is 20,000 square feet, and my Kmart liquor is 10,000 square
Yep.
feet. But my Kmart application is just for 50. Is it the 50, or is it the whole strip mall?
We feel, I feel like it's the whole building. It's the whole kit and caboodle. The whole Publix up there is being assessed, I feel like, because they're building it together. It's building it at the same time. They're not building out parcels out front. It's all attached, yes. And we don't want to use the word detached or detached, because they'll put a little 5-foot space between it and say it's detached, and now they meet it, and they meet it on both sides, and it's
So it's almost like a PD.
sort of
If you come in, you're doing this whole thing
a
together.
unified development
Right.
is what we
Whether
would.
you got 50,000 here and 5,000 here and 5,000 here,
Yes.
if they're all gonna be Kmart clothes, Kmart liquor, Kmart grocery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we're gonna treat it as one, and it's the total square footage of the project.
Is that what we were talking about in the office?
Yeah.
Well, see, the big, it's a completely different entity, right? Like buying or renting.
They're renting from,
Publix,
Yes.
because they are the owner of the entire.
Publix owns that, or is that,
Yes.
is that another owner? Publix owns that, right?
It's defined as a single
Single
building,
building.
not a single tenant.
Right.
A single tenant
Well,
would be
they're
that air conditioned
renters.
space.
So they'd be renting from the LRO, they're not renting from Publix. Someone owns that building. Publix owns
Single
it.
building is the whole
Plus the
thing.
whole kit and caboodle.
Stacy, question real quick onto that, is there a minimum square footage in the parking lot that they need for the building as well? When the
Yes, we
retail-
have, we have minimum requirements for parking. One of the things that we're looking at in our LDRs is reducing a lot of our parking, because our code is, basically from the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council. When they were putting parking standards together, it was more of a downtown urban scenario. And as you know, you see many parking lots with lots of empty spaces. I will say Publix may have undernumbered, because every time I go over there, it is packed.
Yeah, Publix is.
And they don't even have the other tenants open yet, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But we have a minimum requirement for parking. We made a comment earlier today about parking, because back in the day, they were excessive parkers. A lot of the big boxes were excessive parkers, and they were very hard to rein in and say, well, yeah, but you're only needing all those spaces, 2 or 3 times a year. We are willing to reduce our, give you a variance for the park. No, we have to have that number. And so I was telling them today, as a matter of fact, we were talking about it, I said, I hope they've come maybe off of some of that in 15 years. That's the last time I dealt with a big box. I'm hoping they've come off of that in 15 years, and the parking can be negotiated down, because we're always seeing that we just don't need these seas of asphalt anymore. So, but to my staff's point, the definition is single building that occupies 80,000 square feet, so not tenant building.
So the reason behind my question is because you're gonna find a lot of these lesser risk, like LRO spaces, that you're gonna have a staple like, I don't know, Sam's Club, whatever it is. And then in that big parking lot, you're gonna have a Culver's, you're gonna have I know a lot of people don't like this word, a
Out
Taco
parcels.
Bell.
Yes.
In that parking lot, and my thing is,
The out parcels.
like, if we have a lot of space, is there a minimum requirement we can be like, hey, to that building owner, you cannot build anymore on this building because the parking lot is.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We definitely have minimum qualifications or requirements for parking. But these people are gonna come and plan this out. So when they come to us with the Publix, if Publix wanted out parcels, they would have already accounted for those acreages of out parcels along with the parking that goes with those on that parking slab as we speak. Look at the Target in Butler, for example. That Target used to have nothing in the parking lot. There's a First Watch there. You clearly see they had already accounted for all that parking where that building was going had already happened. So they account for all that stuff. They're not gonna
That's the
shortchange anyone on a parking spot.
That's my reason for the questioning is, is there a minimum requirement so we don't have a pop-up retail store just popping up in the parking lots and all of a sudden.
Yes, they would either have to have it planned as that unified development plan, or they would have to eliminate parking elsewhere to gain parking for a new building or a new structure.
Can we control the location of the parking lot? Like preferring it to be back behind a building
Yes.
versus right in front, and so that you see the building and not the sea
Yes.
of asphalt?
That's one of the things that we've been talking about in here. And like I was giving you that example of the Walmart swooshed back to the neighborhood. It's all a sea of parking up front. So we were like, we'll move it up front. But then they were like, well, then now what's worse for the neighborhood? The building and the loading or the parking lot? The other thing that we'd talked about that were difficult, like we were thinking, well, maybe you should have the short side of this massive building up against the road if you were going to. But if you're driving at it, you're going to see the long way of it. And if you're driving both ways, you're going to see the back of it. But if you turn it the wide way when you're driving by, you're going to most likely see landscaping and the smaller side of the building. So it all depends on your visual angles and how you're coming at it as to where the proposed building should go. So we're hoping that we're going to be dealing with some big box folks that really like design and are going to be creative with it. And they are getting a lot more to be able to come into the communities. They are doing a lot more flexible things that we're hoping they'll take our overlay and look at it.
What is our preference for orientation? Because you had mentioned that before, and Publix is kind of oriented for when you're leaving town.
Mm-hmm.
When you're coming into town,
Yes,
you
it's
don't
the way it's
see-
angled, yes.
Right.
Yep.
Is that what we want? Is that what we prefer? You see it as you're leaving town, or you see it as you're coming into town? Do we have a preference? Right.
And the one I
didn't know
keep,
if there was a plan or best practice, if you could dictate, you'd say, you want it, as your people are coming into town, so the first thing they're not seeing is the back of a building.
no, not necessarily that. Our determination of orientation more lies in is the parking up front or the building up front. That's the kind of orientation that we're looking at. We'd prefer that the parking be in the back, but then if you look at the Tioga example, if done well, the stormwater, and you still have 2 rows of parking before that building in the front of.
Rose is different than a lot.
Yes, that's true, because of the landscape breakups and all the other stuff.
Their lot is back behind.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And we require all the breaking up. You cannot have a Chiefland parking lot in our code. It has to have landscaping, it has to have dark sky friendly lighting, it has to have all these things that our code requires, breaking those lots up so that it's not massive amounts of black asphalt. We can't do it.
If any part of the parking lot is in the 500, the whole parking lot has to adhere to that standard.
We're gonna put that language in. We're gonna put that in.
And then, one way or the other, that, well, my building's up front, so the parking lot doesn't have to be, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, that's what we've already had people arguing about it, so it's great that we have that language. We will be putting that in.
Okay.
So,
another question.
numbers, yes.
So you say large scale retail, but then it's not allowed, and you said like a CN.
That down CBD or commercial neighborhood, yes.
Right. So this plot of land you're talking about near Publix, would that not be a CN?
No, it's a CA, right up on the road. Is it CA or CI? CA, commercial automotive. It's where it's fronting, sadly.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Even though it's right there with neighborhoods.
That's correct.
How do we need to give feedback on the 80,000? I liked the answer after they explained it. 80,000 it's not big enough to get me into the real ones, but it's too big to play a game with. Are we good with that as a starting point?
Yes.
I think,
Well,
I think our range would be small.
60, I was gonna say is lower. You wanna go lower, to capture the most going forward. It's just what comes to the city commission and the planning and zoning board. And we're trying our best to streamline our processes so many things don't have to come to the PZB and the city commission on certain
But
things.
the only thing that happens by reducing the square footage size is you say it
Capture
has
more.
to adhere to a nicer standard,
That's true.
right? So
You're correct.
10,000 square foot.
There you go.
Just kidding.
That would be in between the main street and the drugstore. So,
I think 60, that's fine too.
what?
60 safe and 40.
Less than the public, you know,
So 58,000 is the public, so it wouldn't have to be,
But it's 70,000.
but it's 68,000 square feet of
It was
this, of,
69 with everything.
right, so that is not one tenant, that is one single building, because they
So
built it
60 would capture.
together would be 68,000, so it would be captured.
Yeah, okay, good. It's a little after 8.
I know,
This
so,
is really important, so I
It's
would
hugely
miss a few
important.
minutes of a national championship game.
Game started at
However,
no, I feel like, to
However,
be honest, I feel like you
if
have
it's-
given us, staff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we've gotten the direction that we needed to move this forward, if you're comfortable with it, and we reduce it from 80 to 60, and we will have those other provisions in there. We like that if you started in the overlay, you're gonna be in the overlay for the entire unified the building and development plan.
and the 100-foot doesn't count the 500 feet. If I'm in a 100-foot setback, it's 500 feet from that moving out.
500 feet back.
I think it has to be 500, because the green space in front is green space. I want 500 feet from the green space back.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I think we're adding the change that it's going to affect the entire development.
Right.
So it becomes a moot point, the
It
500
does,
feet.
it becomes
yeah.
moot at that point. Because once
Once
you've.
there's 1 foot
Once
in.
there's 1 foot in, it's the whole thing. So maybe we erase the 500 feet and we say, adjacent to or abutting state road, if your property is abutting, I mean, then they'll start subdividing it and
Yeah.
cutting it off and going in the back of it.
I think you all should wordsmith that before we get into
Offline.
We'll bring some
Because it's-
let's work about maybe some options to
There's
you.
100 feet of an overlay district that's gonna be stormwater is kind of a wasted 100 feet inside the overlay district, right? Because they're just gonna say, well, you know.
Yes.
So I wanna capture as much as I can, and there was some line of sight reasoning behind the 500 feet that Jerry gave us when he was pitching this, like 500 feet, that's kind of your line of sight where you'll see it on the road, and that's what you want. But if there's 100 feet and you step that down, but if that counts inside, I just think that we probably need to think about that. But y'all can think about that
We,
much better tomorrow.
we
in the office.
we have marching orders. I feel like we know
Yeah.
what we need to do going back and taking a
Greater
look at
step
it.
down. Love all the
Yes.
differences. 60,000 foot. Special exception gives us a little bit of wiggle room. And then you guys are gonna figure out how to step down. I like roads better than just
Right,
feet, 'cause
division,
that gets
something to divide
weird.
it by, yep. Mhm.
Yeah. Last.
Thank you for that.
thoughts on this? No? Okay, that's going to move us to, and please pass along our gratitude to the Norfleets. I know it wasn't their intention, but educating the public also
Is-
ensures that we're all going to make it to the game. Otherwise, we definitely would not
That is
have
correct.
made it to the game.
Well, I don't know what anybody did about letting people know we were not having that item tonight, but there wasn't a soul here all
Yeah.
night, so great
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
It's done now, Naeem.
All right, topics for members' discussion?
Oh, boy.
All right,
I'm gonna bring that one up again.
Uh-huh,
because
uh-huh.
I think maybe.
sure.
So Newberry
Oh,
Brown.
I'm sorry.
Oh, hang on one second.
No, sorry. We gotta vote.
Oh, that's right, we did. That's not your sorry, that's my sorry. We did read. Do I have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
I have a motion from Board Member Urchin. Second from Board Member Thomas. Okay. Comments, question on the motion on the floor from the board? Public comments, question on the motion on the floor? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed. It was such an engaging conversation. I went right out of the room.
Thank you.
Okay. Newberry Proud.
Newberry Proud.
Show me that pride.
New organization up in Newberry, so we are supporting the youth of Newberry, through various things. Right now, we are selling shirts, they're $10 a piece, and it's gonna go to our first event, which is going to be a combination
Celebration.
celebration. It will be on the original football field. There will be food trucks, a movie. We're gonna hand out some awards to the kids. We've had a lot of teams go to further, so we wanna show, our appreciation and how great we feel our youth are in Newberry.
May 23rd.
Hopefully, it'll keep growing and we can do a lot more things like academics, volunteering and stuff like that, but we're starting with our amazing season, all of our sports teams. So, shirts for $10. You can talk to me, David Wallace, everyone probably knows who he is. So, that with my mic off, by the way, but I'm loud, so it's okay.
Yes.
Yep, so talk to us, we'll get you set up. There is a Cash App, so people can pay that way, and a Google form, again, for that. Second, the Newberry Historical Association is raffling off a basket of goodies valued at over $200 at this point.
250.
$250,
Over
we're getting
250.
there, yeah.
Yeah. Keep putting things in the basket.
No. It's full.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's
lots of great
space. Look,
things.
there's space right here.
RPM, Mitchell's Meats, Stonehouse, Eliano's, just to name a few. There's so much more in there. We appreciate all of our sponsors for the basket. You can buy a raffle ticket. It's $5 for one and $20 for 5, and we'll be doing a drawing on April 19th. So,
Sweet.
Thank you, ma'am. Wonderful job. Miss Kathy, you got
Nope.
anything? Board Member Polo?
Speaking of youth and sports, it would not be a meeting without me saying something about lacrosse. That's exactly what I'm getting at. We will be hosting a districts game on Thursday against Eastside High School, your Newberry Boys Panthers. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Matt from 2911 Barbecue for stepping up and feeding the team. And then he will also be on site to sell his delicious food at the Newberry Stadium. So if you haven't been to a lacrosse game, come on out and support local business. I also want to say a public thank you to Commissioner Coleman for stepping up to feed the boys for their next game. So he's graciously donated to provide food for the team for our game Monday against Ocala, where I'm sure we will be decimated, but our seniors will go out well-fed. Listen, we've already had a better, both teams.
They did. They had a great season. Huge turnaround. I think it's this one girl named Audrey that's just like killing it, right? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Board Member Urchin.
Thank you. Again, I just want to remind everybody, to take advantage tomorrow, 7 to 7. Polls will be open in the municipal building right next door. There's going to be parking in the surrounding areas. Unfortunately, the main parking lot is still under construction. However, the polls will be open from 7 to 7. And I want to give a big shout out to someone that served with us for a pretty long time here. He did well. He was open-minded. He didn't just go with the flow. I've always known him to agree to disagree very respectfully, listen to all the facts. And I don't give a lot of endorsements out there, but I will put my neck out for our old board member, Donald Long. He was an exceptional board member, and he is one of the candidates running for commissioner. So it'd be great to see him advance to the next levels and really make our city proud. So.
Thank you, sir. I just want to let everyone know that city staff is not going to park over here tomorrow. They vacated that to help increase the parking, so you can park over there at the Baptist Church. We've got this parking lot over here. I've seen a little map with some green circles that go floating around where there's parking, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Generally, I would say it takes an hour to an hour and a half to count the votes, recount the votes, certify everything, and then the announcement. So I think we'll all know between 8 and 8:30 tomorrow. Again, I appreciate all the candidates for running. I know this has been a really rough campaign season with some outside influences, but the Newberry folks, I think, have done their best to try to keep it as positive and clean as Newberry can keep it. Other communities have a different value set, but I love the Newberry folks out there trying to remind people what Newberry's like. So, go Gators tonight. Miss Stacy, do you have anything? Did I miss anything? Anything that we want to? Love Newberry Proud. That's a great title. I love that. And can't wait to see that event, May 23rd. We got some exciting stuff going on. And don't forget your raffle tickets. Did you think something?
I thought of something.
Yep.
I wanted to thank the Main Street organization for another fantastic
Oh, yeah,
festival.
please. Thank you. I can't believe I forgot that. Spring Festival was amazing. Great turnout, great weather. Can't wait for the Watermelon Festival. Like, there's just always something going on in Newberry. Somebody mentioned the other day, they said they were running so they could get more kids involved. And I thought, oh my goodness, can you tell me another community where that has more kids involved? The kids do the parking, the kids put up the tents, the kids do the cleanup, the kids are as involved as anywhere I've ever seen. But sometimes you learn about how little people are involved by the statements that they make. Because if they were involved, they would know how many kids are involved in all of our things. So I appreciate you all, and we are adjourned.